Hello there and welcome back. So today we're going to have a chat about the Labour MP, Ed Miliband. The reason why I want to talk about Ed Miliband today is that he's in the news a lot, and a lot of people say things about Ed Miliband, and they say, that he's stupid, or he's a lunatic, or he's a climate loon, is another one we hear. And a lot of other derogatory things are attached to him generally, including the infamous sandwich picture, which if I can find it, I'll pop it on here for you. So this is some of his image in the media. However, I think there's a secret that people miss with Ed Miliband, and I'm going to lay out my case for what that secret is. So first of all, when Ed was a lad, he got 4 A-levels from school, and then he went on to Corpus Christi College in Oxford. In his first year, he was elected a president of some description, leading a student campaign against a rise in rent charges, strangely enough. And anyway, after a few years of this, he went on to graduate from the London School of Economics as a Master of Science in Economics. So that's Mr. Miliband's qualifications there for his resume, and that's real. So this man here, no matter what you'd like to level at him, the charges that you'd like to say about him, I think fundamentally before we get going, we have to just pause for a second and say, well, this person here has quite a deep understanding of economics. And they're not completely silly or stupid. He did complete a Master of Science in Economics again, and so for that reason we're going to have to credit Ed Miliband with intelligence. And indeed, he was, leader of the Labour Party for 4 or 5 years or whatever. And of course, the other qualifications he has for being a politician is a general ruthlessness, as he displayed when he was on the ticket against his brother to be a leader of the Labour Party. And there was a lot of stuff going on around that time, but it seemed as if that was a little bit messy. And in order to get over the line, Mr. Ed Miliband had to act in, shall we say, a ruthless manner. But regardless of that, people in power, they have to act ruthlessly or they don't end up in power. So back to Ed here. So just to really put a bow on that one and just move forward, it needs to be borne in mind that Ed Miliband is not stupid. He's an intelligent person. He's led political parties in this country, and he has a Master of Science in Economics from the London School of Economics. Now, I'm going to put a little video on here, and this was Ed Miliband talking a few years ago on his general outlook. Now, you might say, well, that's not the most up-to-date thing we've got on them. No, perhaps you're right. However, what this clip perfectly surmises is Ed's understanding of it, how he feels about it, and essentially where the modern-day version of himself comes from. So if you have a look at this, we'll get back to each other in a minute.
In the UK, this is, if you're going to change, if you're not going to have a gas boiler and you're going to have a heat pump, is it going to cost you more money? If you're going to have an electric car sales are up significantly in the UK, but is it just going to be a preserve of the rich, or is it going to be for, what Americans would call middle class people, lower middle income people in British parlance? Now, the answer to that for me is government has to collectivise some of these costs. So we've got this big climate investment pledge, £28 billion a year, public expenditure, which is about 1% of GDP. And the sort of key sort of point of that is to sort of make this and this is what I'm working on in the Shadow Cabinet, is to make this transition fair. Because and I think there is a sort of, we have a consensus in this country on the need for climate action, but we have a divergence when it comes to, is this best done more or less leaving it to the individuals in the market with a bit of government on the side, or is this a much more of a partnership with government taking a lead with the private sector in making this transition happen and making it fair?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a bone of contention there between those on the left of politics and those on the right of politics. Those on the right of politics, as I generally seem to land, will often have the belief that if you leave it to the private sector to get it done, it'll get it done. And if there's a product to be made, the public will buy it if it's good for them. And so the differences in thinking here, just so you're aware of this fact, when you're throwing these arguments at Ed Miliband, like he hasn't considered this or he hasn't considered that, he's actually, from his own position, considered these arguments in quite a bit of depth. And so he has long ago, what he's told you here, he's long ago considered which is the best way to get the public to act for climate change, and he's decided that from an intellectual theory and thought and what would be the best way, he's decided that the best way is for government to take massive action, even if the people disagree with it, because essentially it'll be good for them.
So where do you think the public is at the moment? I mean, how can you bring the public along?
The public is totally with us.
But this winter, I mean, there may be people who have to choose between heating and eating. I mean, it's going to be
But that's so important.
But energy prices are doubling.
But that's such an important point, you see, because, and I'm sorry, I should have said this, spelt this out. Yes, and that's terrible. The answer, if we actually got the renewables projects which are stuck in the ludicrous planning system that we have, it would actually cut bills for people. If we insulated homes and had energy efficiency, it would cut bills for people. Mm-hmm. You see, I think this is why it's such a different debate. And when Nigel Farage, who I'm sure New York Times readers will know about, and other people say, well, this net zero thing, it's massively costly for people. I mean, they're just plain wrong. I mean, there's not a debate about this. When gas prices are 4 times renewable prices, it's just not a sort of question. And so they've got this net zero scrutiny group. They want it to be the next Brexit and so on. It's just, I don't believe it'll get off the ground because it is so, I mean, it's just so, and I actually think the public, and this is different from where the Brexit thing was, the public get this. If you look at the polling on, do we want fracking, do we want renewables, renewables win by a mile. But people are asking, okay, overall, we see that it's the sensible way to go.
I love it when politicians say that the public really gets this issue. They really understand it, and they're switched on to it, and they really understand. So the general topic of climate change and its effect on modern society or whatever it is. So if you were to come up and ask me and say, what's your thoughts on climate change? I would have to say, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. I don't understand anything about the climate. I can feel the wind on my face, or if it's raining, that might hit my head, get me wet, etc. But outside of that, I look at numbers on the internet, and sometimes it's warm outside and sometimes it's cold. And really, I have absolutely no idea whether climate change is real or not. So given that that point there, I think a lot of people in our society like to make pretty bold claims about what they think is going on. And I think this is a bit strange given we're talking about one of the most complicated subjects known to man, all of the elements of climate, put together. After all, there is a lot of disciplines within, working on climate, wind, for instance, or whatever it may be. And so it's so complicated, and nobody really can find the numbers anyway. it's essentially down to an ideology now, whether what belief system you want to fit into in modern society. That's what it's become. But the percentage of people in our society that could discuss this stuff on any type of serious level is vanishingly small. So small, in fact, that very few people are able to discuss it in any depth at all. You only come up with half caught catch lines that you may have heard, but really, we're all pretty clueless as to whether this is real or not. My main issue going forward with this, with Mr. Miliband, is the following. I don't know if climate change is real or not. I have no idea. I'm hoping it's not. So we can all live better lives, etc. But I might be wrong on that. I don't know if I'm right or wrong. Ed Miliband thinks he's worked it out. He thinks that he's had a good look at it, even though he's not really a climate scientist at all. He knows a lot about politics and economics, but he's not a climate scientist. Nonetheless, he's decided that this is the right way to go. He's also made a difficult intellectual decision in that he believes that this should be forced onto the public for their own good, as we outlined earlier. So in many ways, Ed could be viewed as, the most dangerous of people to force this onto the public, because you have somebody here who completely believes in what they're doing and believes that they are justified in inflicting a level of either financial or social suffering onto a set of people in order to get to a political end, which is net zero, which isn't really possible at the moment anyway. So on to what's going to happen. Well, whenever you see Ed Miliband in the news, you'll see him in all sorts of different places, perhaps in politics or whatever. Know that this person has gone away and thought about their position in depth, and they've decided to follow this course of action, and they believe that they are right. Ed Miliband believes he's right. Whether he's right or wrong, he believes he's right. Point number 2 is that if we were to guess what's going to happen, then that might assist us in predicting where this is all going to go. So I'm going to predict that the Labour Party is going to continue on with the net zero agenda at whatever the cost is. They continue to do that. And so what we're doing here, we are actually playing out Ed Miliband's experiment. He's decided that this is the correct thing to do. He is the minister responsible after all, and he's come out and he said, I've thought about this, a little bit like Rachel Reeves, but no, Ed Miliband has come out and said, I've thought about this, and I know what's best for the country.
To make this transition fair, because and I think there is we have a consensus in this country on the need for climate action, but we have a divergence when it comes to, is this best done more or less leaving it to the individuals in the market with a bit of government on the side, or is this a much more of a partnership with government taking a lead with the private sector in making this transition happen and making it fair?
Yeah.
And there's a very, very famous saying, and I don't know whether I'm going to nail the saying right here, but it's something along the lines of, those who seek power are very rarely the correct ones to be sitting in power. It's the people that don't seek the power that tend to make the best leaders in our communities. And when you're looking at a person like Ed Miliband, an educated person, somebody that has a lot of belief in themselves, can act extremely ruthlessly given the correct situation. So he is, if you like, a veteran politician. And he understands what he's doing in totality. He understands the media. He understands how to manipulate things. He understands that he's bringing the full spectrum of his skills to bear. in promoting this net zero, and he understands he's doing that. So one of the things to bear in mind with people, I'm not going to label Ed Miliband a zealot, because I don't think he's a zealot. I think he's got a lot of belief in what he's doing. But the problem with that is people that have a lot of belief in what they're doing, if they believe that the course of action they have taken is the right one, then in a lot of instances that makes those people the most dangerous people. Because if you like, fanaticism on a certain topic or whatever it is never a good route to take. Ed Miliband could be selling the benefits of net zero to us. He could just be saying things like, this will be good, this is going to work out. But what he's doing, he's forcing a change on this country. The Labour Party are just allowing him free rein to do so. And so my comments about the experiment running still holds true. We're in the middle of an experiment being conducted by Ed Miliband. That's the great secret that's going on. And he's taking us to net zero, whether it's financially going to work out or not, because he believes, he's thought about it, and he understands that that's more important. And he's decided that for you. And this is why often people who have massive belief in whatever it is, nearing zealotry, can be very, very dangerous. So when you're watching Ed on the television, do bear in mind that you're watching a man who's conducting an experiment with 70 million people based upon the fact that he believes he's correct. Thanks very much for your time. Bye-bye.